Alrighty then. It's 3 minutes late. That's not too bad for me, if I do say so myself. I just make sure that that's going to be quiet and that's not going to start shouting at me. Hi, welcome to the first video. We got Warhammer Conquest magazine that we're going to get started on. We're going to open this up very, very soon. This is the first video of this series. I'll say it now, and I'll probably repeat myself later on at the end of the show. I don't know exactly when episode 2 will come. It all depends on when I get the episode 2 through the post, because I have subscribed, so that will come through my door, and we'll open it once a week on a Monday. So yeah, that's what we'll get doing. I have just remembered that the trouble is with my Facebook feed is that it's not automatic, so I do need to make sure that that's connected, because otherwise you won't get to see any of the chat on there. So we'll just to make sure that that's set up, ready to go. So live show, and as always at that side there, a quick shout out to my third tier patrons who make my multi-streaming possible, and that's Reese and Tim. Their names will go across the screen shortly. A big shout out to them, because without them I'd only be streaming on YouTube, and the streams wouldn't happen probably. So they're most of the links, if you're watching on YouTube, for all of my social media and Patreon and so on are down in the bottom, so you can have a look at those at your leisure. So I think we should just get cracking on straight into this. We'll have a look. This is the Warhammer Conquest magazine. Now, there are plenty of videos all over YouTube about people opening this, talking about it. However, I might be a little bit behind, but I'll carry on. I'll start as I mean to carry on. So we'll open this up. We'll have a look at it. If you haven't seen any of the videos already on there, you can have a look at this one. Don't forget to say hello in the chat if you're watching, and if you've got any questions about the magazine, feel free to throw them up and I will do my best to answer them. Alright, so we'll get cracking on with this. Let's start with the magazine itself, because there's a lot of well, I think we'll probably do a bit of both as we do it, shall we? So let's change that to a slightly bigger picture, and then we'll get cracking on with this, and we can see what we've got going on. Hey, Tim. How you doing? Right, let's get this going out of the way for a minute. Pop that over there. And Alexis and all my kids are upstairs watching along with me as well. Hi, Alexis. Right, so get rid of the plastic. This we'll have a look at in a minute. This is a poster with all of your extra bits and pieces. Just here for a few minutes, waiting for your pizza. Well, have a slice on me, won't you? The trouble is, Tim, actually, if you're, I don't know where you, I don't actually know exactly where you live, but outside of the UK and Ireland, this, unfortunately, for the time being, is a little bit out of your league at the moment. The magazine is only available in the UK and Ireland at the moment, but there has been chatter that Hatchet Park Works, who are distributing this on behalf of Games Workshop, might open it up to the rest of the world as well. So we'll see what happens there. My chat is not working again, is it? Because it's not going to Facebook comments. Let's get the Facebook comments working. Let's move that to there. Yeah, okay, right. Anyway, so let's have a look at this. So this is a magazine. It's 20 odd pages long, and it's what you get in all of your what we'll be getting every week. So this magazine, this subscription, mostly is designed for getting people interested in Holland. Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's going to be a bit out of the way. You won't be able to get this magazine, but you might be able to get it in the future if Hatchet Park Works decide to distribute it worldwide. But this magazine is theoretically, it's designed for people who are new to the hobby of Warhammer 40,000, and as you'll see in a bit, you know, step by step, you're able to build yourself an army, and you'll be able to paint it. You get all the tools and everything you need at least to actually get started. But there is a bit of caveat in there that I wouldn't suggest just jumping straight into it. We'll explain that later. But first of all, we'll have a look to see what we get in here. Loads of people have already done this, so you know we get you get a brief introduction to what the Warhammer 40k universe is, and what it's all about. You know, it's set obviously in 40,000 years from now. You got a man called an emperor who's running what we call the Imperium. Now, for ease, and we'll forget about various viewpoints and so on, that for now we'll just say that the Imperium are the good guys, everybody else are the bad guys. But you know, there's some issues with that, but you know, you'll find that out for yourself. And you'll see a lot of these blue guys. Now, if you don't already know, they are called the Ultramarines. Love them or hate them, the Ultramarines are what people call the poster boys for the 40k for Games Workshop. But essentially, they are a kind of a fixed point that Games Workshop can sell from. There are plenty more Space Marine armies, and you don't have to paint all your Space Marines blue if you want to play the good guys. But again, we'll get to that in a bit, because it's really in depth, and we'll do that we'll go into it every week, no doubt. So we get a bit of an information about the Dark Imperium is kind of the part of history where we're at now. So have a little brief introduction to that. And the Empire Torn in Two is what is that one about? I don't know. I think this might be about what the history is doing at the minute. If not, that was probably explaining what something called the Horus Heresy was about, which again is if a touchy subject this good versus it. That is exactly it. Yeah. Sometimes you think, oh, the Imperiums are good guys, but maybe the Imperium aren't quite so good. So make your decision yourself and stick by it. But the Imperium Torn in Two, the Empire Torn in Two, I'm not sure. I think that might be about what's happened with the Great Rift. That's it, the Great Rift. So that's current history, which is obviously explained over Rift. This is the Great Rift here. Again, I'm not going to read it out to you because you need to buy the magazine yourself. But essentially, this is what the Milky Way galaxy looks like, and there's a massive rift going right the way across it called a warp storm, and you get to explain what all of that is. The Space Marines is what we, theoretically is what most people are drawn to. This is kind of what I'm talking about here. I don't know if I bring this up to this camera here, you can see that these Space Marines, they're green. It's kind of a different army. Well, it's the same army, but they're just painted differently, and they've got a different name. So this is what I'm saying. When we get into the part of the show where I'm going to start talking about where we go from here, yeah, just hold on to your hat for that one. Alright, we got a little section here called the Primarchs, and again, it's, there's a big history about 40k, so, the Primarchs are the gene fathers of all the Space Marines, and there's 12, there was 20 of them. We know of 18, 2 of them have been expunged from existence, and so on and so forth. No doubt we'll get down to that as the issues go along. So here we go. So this is 1,000 chapters. So there is estimated to be 1,000 Space Marine chapters in the Imperium as a whole. This is 2, 4, 6, 8 of them. You've got a couple of the first founding ones. You've got a few of the first founding Space Marine chapters. Again, the foundings, we'll probably get to that later. I won't tell you all of the history of 40k. There's too much of it. But we've got some, and then we've got an Ultima founding one. Again, the Ultimate founding is where the primary Space Marines come from. But yeah, and you can see we've got, even on this page, you've got 2 Space Marines that are painted black. You've got a Space Marine that's painted white. 2 that are 2 different shades of green. You've got the blue guys, which are the Ultramarines. You've got yellow, and you've got a silver one here as well. Painting your Space Marines is quite a personal choice, and again, we'll get to that when we get to the painting section of the magazine. and it's quite important. So just bear with me just for a moment. So we have a little chat about what the Ultramarines are and who the Ultramarines are, and they've done these first because, love them or hate them, they are the fixed point where Games Workshop sells Space Marines from. Unless of course you're buying a specific unit that is only available to a specific chapter, most of the box art you're going to find is going to be Ultramarines, because they're a fixed point. That's where they sell them from. Which army is the white one? The white one is the White Scars, which I don't see many people do because white is a pain in the bum to paint. But it's the White Scars army, which is a first founding army. But yeah, so the Ultramarines, you know, first point of contact for most people for Space Marines. You see blue Space Marines everywhere. That's where you get them from. You'll see the box art. They're all Space Marines. And so we've got a bit of a chat about who the Space Marines are on this one, and then how they paint their armour. So we've got the blue and the different colours of trim for the different companies. Again, about that comes down to how a Space Marine chapter is put together. And then we've got helmet colours as well, which usually denotes rank from most Space Marine armies. But again, depending on how you paint your armies, do you really give a monkeys about this page? I don't know, we'll talk about that in a bit. And then we have, what we have here is, this is a specific battle that they're going into, which is the Battle of Luna, which Luna being our moon, and it's going to give you a little bit of a fluff. It gives you something to think about. You've got the Imperial forces and the Chaos forces that took part, and a bit of intel for the battle itself. And there's a bit of a battle, and you have a look and you can read and you kind of get the gist of, you know, how these things happen. And we're going to go into the Space Marines and about what they actually are and who they are. And the first thing they do is talk about the intercessors, because, which we'll do in a minute, you get intercessors with this magazine. Hi Ragnar, you joined us on Facebook Live, thank you very much. We'll have a chat about, it's having a chat about, you know, the power armor that comes with it, and it kind of helps sometimes knowing what it is you're painting exactly. So that's how it goes. Hi, your underdog, how you doing? And then we're going into how to build. So obviously each week you're gonna get your models, and you're gonna need to know how to put them together. They are all push fit. As you get further on and advance, you might find that your push fit ones don't really go together very well. You might want to change them a little bit. But I'm assuming that most people that are wanting to buy this on a regular basis either already know all of that. Hi dude, sounds great, picture is fuzzy, not sure if it's me or you. It could be about 6 of one and half a dozen the other. My computer is currently maxed out at streaming on 3 different locations. So I'm maxing out that. I'm probably maxing out my internet bandwidth, and it depends on what you're trying to view it on. I'm afraid the camera itself is in full HD, so I'm not sure how it's going, to be fair. So I'm assuming that most of you know, most of you either don't know anything about the hobby, or you've already been in it and you're buying it for a great deal, which is what we'll get to in a bit. So you either push your models together because you don't know any different, and then, you know, if you have any trouble you can throw it down in the comments and we'll have a chat about it, or you already know how to put your models together and you'll probably just clip off the lugs and start converting the models anyway. So yeah, we'll have a chat about that when we start getting more and more models. With only 3 models at the moment, you know, there's not really a lot, and I'm gonna suggest something in just a few moments. Now, so you got breakdown of all 3 models, exactly how to put each model together. Then we're gonna get into the part of the magazine that has possibly had the most controversy, is how to paint your models. What's converting? It's changing the model from what it is to what you want it to be. But I think that's quite an advanced kind of thing to think about in terms of collecting your first models. But at the end of the day, you know, converting / kit bashing, because there's a blurry line between the two, is you can change your model, so in other words you make the model something completely different to what it was supposed to be, or you can kit bash a model, in which case you can just start swapping the odd bits and pieces around, giving different weapons and different heads and so on and so forth. I mean, I would imagine that most people you know what it is, but you know what, actually it's a valid question, because at the end of the day I kind of know what it is. But if somebody wants to know and don't already know, and these videos will be for people who've never seen the hobby before in their life, so it's worth throwing those questions out. If I do miss something, even if you know the answer to it, throw the question down there, because at least if I answer it, if you ask it, knowing what it is, you don't feel so silly asking it, whereas somebody who's never been in the hobby before might feel a little bit, you know, I don't know if that's a silly question to ask. So no, I appreciate the fact that you've asked me, actually. So where was I anyway? I was talking about painting it, wasn't I? I was talking about painting your model. This has possibly been the most controversial part of this magazine so far, and it's what I'm going to talk about when you collect these models. Now, I would suggest not painting your models as they arrive. Now, it might seem a bit daunting that you're going to have models building up not painted, but by all means put them together and you can play with them. There is a little bit section on here called the Eve of Battle, and it's setting you up for your first battle with next week's models, which are 3 Plague Marines. We'll get to that in detail in a minute, but I would suggest not painting your models as they arrive. The reason why I say that is going back to the section where it tells you about all of these Space Marines. Okay, just on this page there are 8 different colour schemes you can paint. There could be up to 1,000. There's estimated to be 1,000 Space Marine chapters, some of which have got what we call fluff, which is the backstory for each of the chapters, some of which just have a name, and there isn't even a name for all 1,000 Space Marine chapters. The idea being is that you're able to create your own Space Marine chapters. You have to follow game rules with those. You can't just make up your own rules, but you can paint your Space Marines however you want. You can paint them, you know, there's a bit of a joke in some communities and a bit of a thorn in the side of others, where you could paint your Space Marines like My Little Pony if you really wanted to. They're your models, you paint them how you want. So I would suggest not painting your Space Marines to start with, simply due to the fact going out for dinner, we'll contact you via Instagram. Bye bye. Alright, sorry up, Tim. Thank you for joining me anyway, even for a short amount of time. Now, there's another reason why I'm saying no, don't paint your Space Marines like they say in the book. Is if we turn this page over, the very first step is to pick up, we'll go through what you get, but pick up your bottle of paint and a paintbrush and slap it straight onto the bare plastic. Now, there's an issue with that. Well, some people have got an issue with it, some people haven't. And again, this comes down to painting being a very, very personal thing. What works for one doesn't work for somebody else. Me, myself, for a start, don't get paint from the pot and put it straight onto the model. First of all, you thin your paint down, otherwise you're going to clog up all your detail. Second of all, I prime my model first, and basically paint is as smooth as a baby's bum, and when you try and put acrylic paint onto that, acrylic paint dries like a very thin sheet of plastic itself. That's what acrylic is, it's a plastic kind of stuff, and so when you paint that directly onto your plastic, the paint has got nothing to stick to. So as soon as you finish painting on your model with, you know, straight onto the plastic, you start picking that model up and getting your thumbs and fingers all over it, your paint's going to start peeling off. So, you know, and when you're first into the hobby and you've painted your first miniature and you feel really cool about it and that you've done a really good job, which is very fair enough, I will tell you that, you know, you see a lot of these models in this book, let's find a picture that we can actually see of a nice big up close model. Have we got a picture of a model in here, nice and up close? I don't know if we have, do we? Oh, there we go. Right, so you got models, right? So you wanna try and get your models that look like that. Okay, so if you've got the magazine, you can actually have a look at that picture, right? You won't be able to paint that way, I can guarantee you. And I tell you what, I've got this guide to one side for this very purpose. Is that going to autofocus on him? That was my very first model. Okay, I used 6 bottles of paint, not full bottles, but 6 types of paint. Yeah, that was my best. That was my best at the time. All right. So you could feel great about you've just finished your first model, and then when you start playing with him, the paint starts peeling off. That's not going to feel very good when you first start this hobby. So don't paint your models the very first time you start. Not when you first don't paint your models the second you buy them. That's it. First of all, buy yourself a rattle can of primer. And a rattle can we call it a rattle can. Hang on a second. We call it a rattle can because it rattles. Simple as that. I picked up the wrong one. That's my metallic spray paint. That's the one I want. Right. I buy this stuff. This is the stuff that I started priming with, and when I use a rattle can, this is the stuff I use. It's a plastic primer. Okay, basically, it's from for a car. Okay, about £5 for a can of that stuff. That will at least let you to actually put some paint onto your models without it coming straight back off again the minute you finish drying. Okay. The second reason why I say don't paint your models the second you buy them is you've got so many Space Marine chapters to choose from that, to be fair, throwing your paint at your models the second you get them, and you have to do it the way that they're doing it in here, just so you do it, you're going to have 80 issues of this, and a third of them at least are going to be Space Marines, and by the time you get to the end, you're going to have a full Space Marine army, and we'll get to the points in a minute. If you've thrown paint and painted them all Ultramarines, you've got a choice. You either have to play Ultramarines from then on, or you then need to repaint your entire army. So what I would suggest is, this is a good start for a good guide, and what I might suggest, for only $1.99, and I know it's a bit hard to do at the moment because they're a little bit hard to find, but perhaps buy 2 of these ones, 2 of the first ones, because what you can then do is you can copy this with one of the sets of Space Marines, and we'll have a look at what you get in the model in a minute. But when you first get those Space Marines, you can copy this and you can do what it says to do and paint it how it says here, and they can be what we call your test models. So you can just throw paint at them and you can practice your painting on those 3 models that you come with one of these sets. And then if you subscribe, you can either start from issue 1, in which case you'll get another one of those and you put them to one side, or you build them and that's what you use and leave them as bare plastic for now. But when you finally decide on what Space Marine chapter you want to paint, you can then start painting properly, and you haven't wasted all of that time painting half an army that's blue. If you don't want to. If you want to play Ultramarines, then feel free. I'm not going to hold it against you. But it's an idea, because in this book alone there are 8 different colour schemes that you could paint. But the paints that they give you to start with are only going to be able to paint 1 colour scheme. And do you want to be locked in that for the next 1.5 years, 2 years? It's something to think about. And so my suggestion would be, don't necessarily paint your minis yet. On the whole, it's a fairly standard. The issue about not priming your miniature and also not thinning your paint is another issue that there is in this book. You must thin your paints, otherwise you're not going to be able to see the model. You just have a lump of paint in your hand. But other than that, I mean, if people watch this video and want me to start doing like a weekly kind of painting guide that can run alongside this when I think it's ready to start, when I think you've had enough Space Marine kind of ideas to kind of figure out which Space Marine chapter you might want to do, and especially when you get your first wash as well. On here it tells you to do your base coat, do your black and do your gold, but you don't have any kind of wash, which is a really thin paint to give it into recesses, to give you shadow. It can, you know, there's no shadows and stuff, so you're painting in the wrong order as well. Yeah, I think is what I'm trying to say. If people want me to do some a concurrent sort of painting show along with this show, then feel free, throw it in the comments, throw it in the suggestions, message me on any of my social media. If you can see them, they are scrolling down the bottom of the screen there. Feel free. Okay, and then we're going into, now we've covered the painting bit, we're going into the mission briefing, which is setting you up to play the game next time with your Death Guard Marines or Plague Marines. Alright, and then as with most of these kind of model stuff, we're going to say, you know, oh, subscribe to us and you get all of this stuff. I'm going to assume that if you're going to be following this show, you'll probably have subscribed, which is really great because you get your painting handle when you subscribe, which is brilliant. It means you can hold your model without rubbing the paint off as you're painting. You get a couple of brushes, which are Citadel brushes. Again, brushing paint brushes are a very, very personal thing. Myself, I use Winsor & Newton Series 7s. I went out, they're expensive, so some people either can't afford them, some people don't even like them. So, yeah, it's, you know, your mileage may vary, depends on what you want to do. So, yeah. But you get some paint brushes, at least you can give it a try. And we've got a couple of, what we've got, a base brush, a layer brush, and a dry brush, which is nice. Which no doubt there'll be some, you know, there'll be some tutorials about how to dry brush and what those brushes mean later on. There's one suggestion I might make as well. If I do talk about something that kind of, I throw a terminology out there that you don't know, feel free to either ask or wait for a couple of weeks, because in a couple of weeks time you might have already found out what it means. Because, you know, I'm talking about a dry brush because you get it for subscribing. I don't know what a dry brush is. Then, you know, if you give it a couple of weeks, I'll either tell you now if you want to know, or give it a couple of weeks and there'll be an issue that will tell you exactly how to dry brush and what dry brushing is. So feel free to do one or the other. When you subscribe, you get some modelling clippers as well, because that's quite important. You don't want to be snapping your miniatures off the sprue just by twisting it and pulling it off. I used to do that when I was a kid. You know, you clip them off with your clippers. Get some plastic glue. Again, I prefer not to use plastic glue because it's a permanent bond as opposed to super glue, which can come apart. I prefer to be able to pull my models apart if I need to. And you get a mold line remover, which is apparently really great. I mean, it looks like the keychain version, the small one, for removing the mold lines, which we'll go and have a look at those in a minute. I tend to use a craft knife, but I've heard some good things about this. I don't have one, so I'll have a look to see what it's like. So that's the magazine. So it took me a little while to get through there, and obviously it's going to say in episode 2 we'll have Death Guard Marines, we'll have a playmat, we'll have some dice, rulers, and some Death Guard green. No doubt they'll tell you to do the same thing with the Death Guard as they did with the Space Marines, and just slap the Death Guard green straight onto the model. Yeah, I don't agree with that either. So we'll see. And then episode 3, we do know that we've got some Space Marine Reavers that will no doubt have a little section in the book about who Reavers are. We've got some lead belcher, which means you start adding the metallic paints to the guns and so on and so forth. Exciting new ways to play. Well, I think they'll just give you some extra rules to how to play, especially with combat. That's the one, you see. Right, let's get to the models. Let's get to this. So I'll grab this off the box. Oh. Now, what's going on here? Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Right, so freebies. Genuinely, these are freebies. If you don't already know, this stuff here is worth about 10 times that, honestly, and I'll tell you for why. In here you get your first Space Marines. Now these are intercessors. They're blue plastic. Again, this is another reason why I said don't paint your miniatures yet. If, for argument's sake, now I've got a different model here, this is a Reaver, but this is a red Space Marine. Okay, he's one of the Blood Angels, but that's you'll probably hear about them in a few issues down the line. Alright, but this is a Reaver. It's a red Space Marine. If I wanted to paint that colour on that plastic, it's not going to work, because the blue is going to carry on showing through the paint all the time. It's going to be a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare to paint. So that's why you need to prime your models, because you can get rid of that blue finish, turn it grey. I would suggest grey, not black, whereas a lot of people would say spray prime black. I don't like doing that, but we can get into that in future episodes. You prime it grey, and then you can paint whatever colour you want over the top of that. You could go green, you could go pink, you could go black, you could go grey. Any colour you want will go over the plastic if you prime it first. Whereas if you try and do the blue plastic, you're going to have a nightmare trying to cover that up if you didn't want to do the blue guys. So that's why I'm suggesting buy 2 of these, so you can follow the painting guide in the book on one of these sets of guys, and then you can do your own thing later down the road. You can ask questions about what colours do you need, how do you want to paint a different colour. I want to paint salamanders, which are the green guys. How do I paint it? What colours do I need? And I could give you those answers. Whereas in this book, you're only going to get answers to if you want to paint these blue. So just bear that one in mind. Alright, and then also in here, so those 3 models are worth £10 by themselves. Alright, I mean it, £10 in GW. You get yourself a brush. Now I've been seeing that some people have had a little plastic doohickey cover on the end of their brush, but this one hasn't. It's very, very stiff. You need to soak it in water first. You need to give it a rinse out in water before you use it. I've already had one of these, and I've opened it up, and I've been using this brush. It's all right. I mean, it's not the best brush in the world, but it'll do you for starters. It's a reasonable brush, and if you've subscribed, you're gonna get another 3 brushes anyway. So that's kind of handy. It's pretty cool. So you'll be able to get your paint on your models if you don't own a paintbrush. These are the bases that go with the models, so we'll just ignore them. They're part of the models. And then we have your Macragge Blue base paint, which is the base colour for your Ultramarines if you want to paint them Ultramarines. We have a black paint, which is good for, well, it's black, so that's a reasonably decent colour. And then we have Retribute Armour, which arguably is one of the best gold colours going. And if you wanted to know, this pot of paint is worth £3.50. It's higher pigment gold, so yeah, it's expensive. These bottles of paint, if you want to go out and into any of your local Warhammer stores, about what, £2.55 each. So you can see how this amount of paint is. That's why these are hard to find, because people have been buying them up like crazy. Because you've got about £20 worth of stuff there for £1.99. So that's expensive. So that's the magazine and the freebies that you get. The other thing you get, if I can find it, because I've buried it now, haven't I? What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Free poster, which is really cool. Now I'm not going to open this up right into the poster, because we don't need to. Because if I pick up my and I turn this around, you can see the poster is right there. It's a massive, great big A2 kind of size poster. A4, A3, yeah, about A2 size poster. It's a big poster, and it's pretty cool. So and you've got a Primaris Space Marine on there. The intercessor there is a sergeant. of the Ultramarines. Again, this is what I keep talking about. The Ultramarines are the go-to. They're the go-to promotional army to use. You know, it just gives you a focal point. It gives you, you know, the standard focal point that you can follow as a collector. Okay, certainly as if you're new. So what we're going to do is we'll just have a quick look at this, because what in here we've got some little more information about what you get in the subscription, but not so much there. I mean, this is pretty much what we've gone through. You know, how to collect your models, how to build them, how to paint them, which is along here. Let's move this. How to paint them, and then how to play. You're going to learn how to play the game. Week on week you'll get some new ideas about how to play the game, which is brilliant. Now, this is the important bit, and I'm gonna have to wiggle around and we'll move this, because this here is what everybody has been going crazy about. This is what you get in this collection. You've got all of those paints, right, which again, you've got a lot of money's worth of paint there. Don't forget, each one of these small pots, with the exception of that one, each one of these small pots is around about £2.55 each. Yeah, so that's five. Every four is about £10 worth of paint. So you got four. That's £30, £40, £50, £60. Yeah. These bottles of paint, I imagine we've got some. It looks like we might have some technical paint, or possibly some washers, and possibly a few more small bottles of paint there. The washers themselves, they're worth £4.55 each or so. You're looking at about £60 or £70 worth of paint. These models here, now there has been a breakdown, and in fact actually somebody called Vincent Notley, I'll put a link when this video goes live for you to re-watch it in the future. I'll put links down in the description below on YouTube. But Vincent Notley did a price breakdown of all of this, and if you want to watch a video of that on YouTube, yeah, it's Kirioff TV did a video of the price breakdown using Vincent Notley's figures. And the Space Marines, they're worth £300, over £300. Same with the Death Guard here, which are the, yeah, we got the good guys and the bad guys, but the Death Guard, they're over £300. We get all of them in there as well. And then the terrain itself, I think they said it was worth like £200 or something, I think. All in all, it's around about £900 worth of models. That's not including the extra 60 or 70 quid's worth of stuff that you get here. The entire collection, once you're subscribed, is worth somewhere in the region of about £1,000, and you're paying for this over 80 issues at $7.99 a piece. So you can see how doing this is great value. It really is. And in fact, there's another channel, Big Mech Dan Skull, and he did a breakdown of how much the models, how many points of models you're getting, and points are how we value the size of the army and how powerful the army is, and they're fairly even. And if I remember rightly, he said that they're worth about 2,500 points each, which in and of itself gives you full armies. I mean, this isn't a part works where you're going to get a half an army and then you're going to have to go out and spend a ton more money on another army. I've got hair and it's tickling. Excuse me. These are full armies. They might not be the most powerful armies, and they might not be the most, how do we say it, optimized. You know, there are plenty of models out there. If you go to Games Workshop website, there are tons and tons and tons of models that you don't get with these guys. Some of them are more powerful than this stuff, some of them are not quite so powerful. Some models work better with other models. That's a whole different kettle of fish. But on the whole, you know, you're looking at a full size army. It might not be optimized, but it's a decent size army. So this is a really, really good value subscription. Now, I've subscribed to it, so I will be showing you what you get every week. You see, once you've subscribed, you get all of this. You see this one here? Once you subscribe, if you wait, that is what you want to wait for, to figure out when to start painting your Space Marines. Yeah, you can't see what that is at the minute, but that is a picture of a ton of Space Marine chapters you can choose from. And then once you see a colour scheme you like, or something that you think looks really cool, you can then go on to things like the Wikipedia, have a look on Google, and have a look to see whether there's a chapter that you really like the idea of. I paint Blood Angels, not because, one, I like the colour red, but two, because once I saw that there was some red Space Marines rather than the blue ones, I then looked at the on the internet, and I had a look at what the Blood Angels were, and I read some of the stories and some of the, you know, some of the what, like I said, the fluff behind the army, and that was awesome. You know what I mean? I loved everything about them, and so I got attracted to them, and that's why I paint Blood Angels. So if you're going to wait to paint your armies, wait for that there. Have a look to see what you think looks cool, and then you can then do your research into what that army actually is, and then you can really get behind your models then. Now, if you wanted to do this premium subscription, which is what I have got, you get some extra boards to play on. You get some boxes to put your stuff in, some data cards for the models that you've got. No doubt, if you're playing the game without those, you need to keep these handy, this magazine handy, and the rules will be in there. The data cards are like quick reference cards, probably. I don't know yet, I haven't got any, but you know, I reckon there'll be quick reference cards, so you don't have to keep flicking through your book. You know, is it necessary? I don't know. You get some tokens as well, just some game tokens to remind you. This is for the premium subscription, and you get some extra dice as well. Yeah, so on the whole, I think this is a pretty good magazine. I've rambled a bit on this one, and I've kind of gone a bit around the houses. To be fair, a lot of the information that I've been giving out is already available on, you know, YouTube and stuff like that. I'm kind of a bit behind on this one, but the idea is going forward, I'm going to be available, you know, every week. You know, you're going to see me every week once I start getting my collection in, and I'll do this, and I'll open it up, and we'll have a look at it, and we'll see what it's like. But I'll leave you with one last thing though, and I'm going to bring this up in here because you know this collection is designed for. Why did I put that one there? I should be on that one. I changed it earlier, didn't I? I didn't change it back. So what is this collection for? Well, the collection is designed for, you know, the younger audience, no doubt. It's for people who are not part of the hobby, who've never seen it before, who don't know what they're doing with the hobby, which is fair enough. You know, we all started from somewhere. But what I would suggest, now I've already suggested don't paint your minis just yet, but I would love for everybody to get involved on this thing. I'd love everybody to buy this and subscribe to it and just bring some new players into the hobby, which would be fantastic for everybody. But perhaps some of you younger viewers might have an issue with how much it costs. It's $7.99 an issue. You know, the first one's $1.99, the second one's $4.99, but from there it's $7.99 an issue. Now, that's for 2 whole armies and a bunch of terrain, but you have to pay that once a month when they send you out the models. So what I might suggest is that perhaps if some of you younger folks want to get a part of this as well, and you want to get into it, but maybe it's a bit expensive, think about talking to your grown-up and perhaps finding a friend who wants to play with you as well, and get him to talk to his grown-up, and then perhaps get your grown-ups to talk to your grown-ups, And so eventually what you could do is that if you think about it, you could split this collection right down the middle. If you've got some pocket money and you could give your pocket money to your grown-up and say, there's my half of the magazine, and if your friend wants to do it as well and he can pay his half, you could split this collection and have a full game, a full Warhammer 40k army to play with. You'd have to decide who gets which army, or perhaps you're both going to keep it. Maybe you've got to do it with a brother or sister, in which case you both share it, and you can, oh, I'll play the Space Marines this week, you play the Space Marines next week. So it's an idea that perhaps, you know, for some of you younger viewers, you might think, you know, maybe you should think about spreading the cost and sharing it with somebody, and then you can possibly, you know, if that's, you know, it's an idea I had anyway. Obviously, for you older viewers, I mean, you know, it's a fantastic collection to be able to build up to your own Space Marines. Now, the Space Marines in this, I'll probably be painting most of them red because they'll be added to my Blood Angels. I might start a new chapter, so I'll figure out which chapter I want to do. I was toying with the idea of some Salamanders, but they need lots of flamers, and there won't be many flamers in this, so we'll see what happens. And the Death Guard, I mean, I want to start a Death Guard army. I certainly want a Death Guard kill team, which is a different game altogether. So, yeah, that's probably what I'll do. And then the terrain, obviously, terrain's always useful. So, we'll see how that goes. So, I think that's all I've got to say for today. I've got a shadow moving around the room. Why is there a shadow? Oh, there's a fly on my light. Anyway, so I think that's all I've got to say for it tonight. I mean, this is quite a long one. It's been, 45 minutes that I've been talking already. I hope you've enjoyed it, I really do, and if you've got any suggestions or any comments to make, feel free, even after I've finished recording. You know, my various social media is scrolling down the bottom there. If you're watching on YouTube, there are links down below. If you're watching me on Twitch, you can feel free to throw me a comment, throw me a chat, and yeah, we'll have a chat. Again, anyway, just throw comments at me, throw messages at me if you've got ideas about where you want me to go. Do you want me to build these models as they come in? Do you want me to paint them as they're, well, not as they're painted in here? Do you want me to teach you how to paint as the models come in? Do you want me to give you ideas? Do you want me to stop talking and just show you the pictures? I don't know. Throw them in the comments. You know what? You know, it's all, at the end of the day, this show won't work if you guys aren't watching, and you're not going to watch if you're not enjoying it. So feel free. Throw comments, throw likes, shares, subscribes, get it all out there, get everybody talking about it, and I'm here, well, you know, every week once they start coming in, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So feel free. Now, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not sure when the next episode will be, because I need to wait for the second one to come along. I was having a look that I might be receiving it next weekend. So in that case, the next show will be next Monday. But keep an eye, make sure you've subscribed to me on YouTube, make sure you're following me on Twitch if that's what you're using. Make sure you like Bases of Operations Painting Studio on Facebook. You'll get notifications when I go live on there. Other than that, I would love to say thank you for watching this one. It's been a pleasure. I've been nice talking to you. I've had a couple of comments from two of my different platforms, which has been fantastic, and I've enjoyed having you all here. Feel free to check out the links below. I will put Big Mech Dan Skull's YouTube channel and Kirioff TV's YouTube channel in the description when this goes live for you to watch again, and also I'll put a link down to Vincent Notley's blog that gives you the price breakdown for this collection. And other than that, you'll see me again. I'll be back live. I won't be live on my usual Tuesday feed. We've got no game tomorrow night, which is what I would normally do on a Tuesday. But I will be back on Thursday, where I continue painting the Imperial Death Lord. So if you want to see some painting early on, check me out on Thursday. Other than that, thanks for watching this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Alright guys, so thank you very much. I'll see you next time.